It's not exaggeration at this point to say that we have a country to save. What I'm asking you to do is consider me in this job interview because I'm the battle-tested conservative. We've got enough corporate elites in Washington. What we don't have is any Green Berets. And I would be the first Green Beret to serve in the United States Senate. Well, I will go there to fight to secure the border, fight for parents' rights, and to put this economy back on track. My name's Variance. I volunteered to be part of a counter-narcotics task force serving on the U.S.-Mexican border. I was there over 20 years ago and saw what a disaster it was then. It's a full-scale invasion now. I called on President Biden earlier today, and I hope you'll see the plan that I put out, to deploy 3 military divisions to the U.S.-Mexican border because we must stop the bleeding. And that is something that could be done within a matter of days, really. After that, it means building the wall. It means completing President Trump's wall all the way from the Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific Ocean. It also means no amnesty. If your first act in this country is to break our laws, you should never be rewarded with citizenship, birthright citizenship, any government benefits. We don't want to secure the border because we hate the people on the other side. We want to secure the border because we love our country. And the definition of a foreign terrorist organization is a group that's willing to kill our fellow Americans. These cartels are killing over 200 Americans a day with the fentanyl that they're bringing into this country. We know that this comes from China, mixed together in Mexico. We must define these cartels as foreign terrorist organizations and use the full force of the U.S. military and the U.S. federal government to kill them so that they can't kill our fellow Americans. Let me be clear to families all over Ohio that have lost loved ones from fentanyl. I am willing to use lethal force to protect your families. I live in the real economy just like everyday Ohioans do. I'm not sure that my opponents here have to sit at the kitchen table and figure out how they're going to pay their bills the way most Ohioans do. I understand that it's because of the bad policies of Biden and Brown that Ohio families are suffering. They've offered solutions that aren't really solutions at all, hiring 80,000 new IRS agents and spending trillions of dollars on green energy nonsense, but calling it somehow an Inflation Reduction Act. That doesn't reduce inflation. The way that we grow this economy is by getting government out of the way, cutting taxes, streamlining regulations. That means making the Trump tax cuts permanent in 2025, and that means doing oil and gas exploration here in Ohio so that we can not just be energy independent, but energy dominant. That's how we grow our economy. And the oath that I'm going to take to serve in the United States Senate means first and foremost protecting this country. And so if the Democrats are unwilling to join us on border security, if they're unwilling to get the out-of-control spending under control, you bet I'm willing to shut down the government. This isn't something that we should relish, by the way. It's not a good thing to shut down the government. But when it comes to protecting this country, saving this country, absolutely a tool we have to be willing to use. Ohioans know that I fight for the sanctity of life. That's not something that's going to change. We also have to be really thoughtful and compassionate about this issue. We have to understand that any woman who's facing an unplanned pregnancy is, by definition, facing a crisis in her life. And so it's not enough to be pro-birth. We have to truly be pro-life, and that means supportive services for those mothers that make the courageous decision to maybe be a single mother or raise a child, to maybe bring a child into the world, to give that child up for adoption. The states can set their own standards, but there should be a bare minimum that we look at the federal level. And we're not a nation that should allow late-term abortion. That's the extreme position that Biden and Brown have. The Second Amendment is under attack, not just here in Ohio, but nationally. There's only one of us up here who has a consistent record of fighting to protect our Second Amendment values. That means we don't disarm law-abiding people. We don't disarm Americans in order to try to make the community safer. We need to not another penny will go to Ukraine until we've secured the southern border. That has to be the top priority. And once we do that, of course, the world's most exceptional nation can do things to make sure that our world is safer and, more importantly, that America is more secure. And that means that we need to create the circumstances where the fight in Ukraine can end very rapidly. When it comes to Israel, there is nobody more pro-Israeli than I am. In fact, I've trained with members of the Israeli Defense Forces. I've been there 5 times. I've made it very clear that we will stand with our ally Israel. I was shocked when my opponent, Mr. Moreno, said that Israel doesn't need America's help. I guess you should expect that for a guy that sat on a board of a foundation that gave money to anti-Israel groups like J Street and even a radical pro-Palestinian organization. Let me be clear about something. Anyone who would subject a minor child, a precious child, to a gender transition, that's child abuse. And my girls, they could beat the boys on the basketball court, but they shouldn't have to. The only way for women's sports to be safe and fair are for girls to compete against girls and boys to compete against boys.